Red light.
And I also have Michelle Hickey tonight too. She's a co-planning partner, but I'm going to do the talking tonight. So she usually gets that. So, well, I guess before we get started, why don't I tell you about me and who I am and my journey of getting here to you right now. I guess how I found permaculture, in talking to other people who are permaculturists and know about it, it's always interesting hearing people's stories about the journey and the path
the green line down to her eyes.
To get to the point of saying, I'm a permaculturist and getting permaculture certification, going through the course of permaculture. Design course.
Yeah.
So I guess for me, growing up, I was always into nature. So I always spent my time as a kid playing in the creek, playing in the woods, outside looking for toads and snakes and bugs and worms. My mom used to always have to check my pockets when I would come in as a little kid because they'd always be full of worms or grasshoppers or something. Yeah. So I've always had a natural affinity towards nature and being outside. So I've always had that connection to the natural world. And so as I got older, I followed that passion somewhat, involvement with Sierra Club and Greenpeace, and more activist type organizations. I originally intended to be a veterinarian when I started college, but plan B, I became more interested in people, so I took my career in a direction of psychology and focusing on people because I found people were fascinating. Did continue the natural, connection to nature, bluebird monitor, park volunteer, all those types of outside natural activities. And then got to the point I had family who had moved out to California, the left coast out there. When I was younger, my boyfriend, current husband at the time, was many years ago, probably 30 years ago. Of course, going out to California, we're going to go vegan, we're eating organic. And my husband and I are like, yeah, okay, great, organic. We're Midwesterners, yeah, that's something you do out here. We don't do that here. So a few years later, get married, and I have kids. So my first kid, somewhat colicky, so that was probably my biggest first step into the whole understanding this whole systems and connections process. So it's interesting how many people you hear talk about children being the impetus to opening your eyes and becoming more aware of how the world is and what's really going on in the world. So that began my interest in organic food. So I went through the whole journey of learning about food allergies and why do we have so many food allergies? It's crazy. So on behalf of my kid, I spent all this time educating myself and learning more about food and our food system. Which led to the journey of learning about peak oil, because once you understand the whole food system, you understand how dependent it is upon oil, and then you realize, okay, well, these two things are connected, and you find more and more connections as the more you learn, the more connected you realize everything is. And it was in that journey when I stumbled upon information online about permaculture. Ding, boom. So it's like this light bulb went on. It's like, oh, that's what it is. So all these interests that just build up over time, and you learn these connections. It's just like then you hear about permaculture, and it's like, oh yeah, that's what I've been doing. That's what I'm interested in. But then it took a long time from learning about permaculture and such a thing existed for me to actually go and get my certification. So I went through the permaculture certification down in Stell, Illinois. I think it was permaculture. That was 2012. But it took me like 6 years of the time of learning such a thing existed to actually going through the process of taking the permaculture design class. So I did, And then with all the other stuff I was doing in my life, I was working on zero waste projects and yeah, and all these other things. It's like I had found myself on this path. I was like learning about energy, doing green drinks. I had started a green drinks chapter here in Naperville, so it was just another way for people to connect. I was interested in Transition Town. I was trying to get a Transition Town movement started, and had met Michelle in several of these places on my journey and my work in the community. And just like, finally got my certification. I'm like, came back from my certification, like, okay, done doing it piecemeal. We're going to create something that's going to put it all together into a nice focus so that all the pieces fit together and people can understand it. So that's like, Michelle, we need to do this. And so here we are. We started officially in 2013, January of 2013. We got our official 501c3 status. And we have classes out at the Conservation Foundation's McDowell Farm. And here we are. We're doing all kinds of community outreach. Our outreach program consists of installing community food forests. We've got a project at the farm that we're doing. It's a demonstration edible forest garden, which is a perennial-based food system. So it's a garden that you plant once and then you're done. It takes a lot of work getting it started and getting it going, but once you do it, it's going to be there continuously. You don't have to keep going back and replacing it every year. And then we've also got a project, a similar project out on Ferry Road on DuPage County property. It's right along the prairie path. So we're creating this beautiful edible oasis for people on the prairie path to stop and visit. As you're biking, you can sit and enjoy. We got all of our trees and shrubs planted this spring. We've been planting a lot, so April's been a planting month. So you'll have to stop by and check out those projects. We also offer classes, so we do a permaculture design class. We teach herbalism, we teach wild edibles, and we do a few other individual classes as well. So that's what we do. And then we come out and we talk to people and permaculture, and at least get you aware that such a thing exists. So that's why I'm here tonight. Hopefully I can educate a few of you that now you'll be aware of what permaculture is and continue your journey, your learning journey on developing that understanding. So, with any luck, the remote will work. Almost, it was working. There we go. Okay, so permaculture. Who here knows what permaculture is? Or what have you heard about it? Or what do you think it is? Michelle, you don't get to answer. Anybody? Has anybody heard anything about permaculture? Yeah, very good. Permanent. Yes. Okay, it is permanent. Okay. Sustainable. It's about sustainability. I heard someone say something.
Is it edible?
About food, yes. Food. What else? Anybody, any whispers about permaculture?
It uses lots of pesticides and herbicides.
Lots and lots, as much as we can. All right, so natural. Anybody else?
Well, it's probably eco-friendly, huh?
Yes.
Very well now. Yeah.
Okay. So it sounds like you guys have a good, just general feel for what we're talking about here. This is Bill Lawson. So he's one of the founders of permaculture. And he started this whole concept almost 50 years ago now. It was back in the 70s. It was him and a student, David Holmgren. And they were the ones who started this whole weaving everything together. So yes, it's permanent, just like you said. So it's a combination of permanent, and originally they talked about agriculture, so permanent agriculture. So yes, perennial-based food, and perennial-based systems for supporting our daily living. And it's evolved now over time to include more culture. So what's happened more recently is people have expanded the definition so that there's more of an understanding that applies beyond just our food systems and and ground and gardening. So typically when people think permaculture, they think about gardening. Ecological gardening is what people is the general concept. If you don't really know about it, that's generally what people think about. So, but it really does apply to so much more than just our gardens. So Bill says it's a philosophy of working with rather than against nature, of protracted and thoughtful observation rather than protracted and thoughtless labor. So, and looking at plants and their animals in all their functions rather than treating any area as a single product system. So rather than just producing, your corn and your beans or just doing meat, you're putting it all together. So, who can tell me what the definition of permaculture is?
Hey.
All right, Bill wasn't a real good marketing guy, right?
That's nice.
So, and this is what's happened when Michelle and I, because with the Resiliency Institute, our focus is on suburban permaculture. So we want to apply permaculture principles to suburbia. And what happened was in seeking out and starting our organization, if you start a nonprofit, you have a board of directors. So what happened was we started making our list of people that we could ask to be on our board. So we have people that we know that do know what permaculture is, but there's people who don't know what permaculture is. So we approached one gentleman in particular, and it was at a benefit dinner, and so we're talking casually, and I'm like, yes, we would love to have you as a board member. He's like, well, what is permaculture? And so I proceeded to explain to him all of this definition of permaculture. And he's like, what? So he's like, okay, give me your elevator speech. I'm like, well, it pretty much is the elevator speech. So it's a very complex concept to try to get down to what we need here in suburbia in order to make this take off, a functional definition. So Michelle and I spent many weeks trying to come up with a tagline or our one-liner that you could use for marketing purposes to try and sell this concept and get people to understand this concept. So what we came up with is it's a nature-based design method used to create sustainable systems, so somebody got sustainability, for lifestyle, land, and community. So we're creating systems for our lives, so how we live our everyday life, how we use our land, and how we design and function and relate in our communities. So it's still pretty complex. So it's like, okay, yes, we got it down to one sentence. But there's a lot of information in just that one sentence. And people still, if you've never heard of permaculture or don't understand it, they're still like, what? So, but that's where we're at right now. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to try and break it down for you a little bit so it makes a little bit more sense to you. So maybe it'll be a little bit more memorable. So it's nature-based. So the whole principle, as you saw in Bill Lawson's quote, is that we observe nature. Because guess what, folks? No matter what, sustainability, the planet is going to survive. The planet is going to continue. It's going to be a matter of how the planet is going to continue, of what we do to it, and what that journey is going to look like in the way we treat it now, and the way things are going now. It's like, what is that process going to look like? and what are the consequences going to happen in that time frame. So whether we're not helping the planet or whether we are repairing the planet. But it all starts, we have to see what's going on with Mother Nature because Mother Nature wants to continue. Mother Nature, the planet, will continue. So that needs to be our teacher. We need to use nature as our teacher and do what nature does in order to survive. And make the world as highly functional as possible. So in permaculture, what we talk about a lot are patterns. So we observe our patterns in nature. So typically when you think of a pattern, so we've got a spiral pattern up there. We've got our tessellation pattern, our branching pattern, we've got our lyra pattern. And so what we do in permaculture is we use these patterns as examples for the way we're going to create things and design things and use things. Biomimicry is one technique of that. So, for example, some people know about Velcro. You know, it was invented by observing the burdock seeds. So by looking to see how that works, we can come up with fasteners that function the way nature would function. We also need to consider time. So we've got the seasons. This is probably one of our biggest problems that we have in our society is we need everything right now, or yesterday, preferably. And we try and hurry things and get things immediately, and we need it now. So a big part of permaculture is looking how things evolve over time and planning for that. So we're taking a long-term view of things, not immediate gratification, which our society is so hooked into. Yeah, let me just check this out right here for a second. All right. So when we're looking at nature, one of the first things that we do is we observe. So, quick question. Who can tell me what Michelle was wearing?
Something kind of purpley that kind of goes with your dress.
Okay, she had on purple. What else?
Jeans and shirt socks.
Jeans and striped socks. Okay. Does anybody else remember anything?
Very long hair.
Okay. All right. Okay, Michelle. So yes, she did have on purple, and we color coordinated today.
That's so nice.
It's so funny, we do that all the time. And she did have on striped socks. So you guys are good observers. So you are already have a good foundation for being good permaculturists. So it's raising awareness, and I know this group too, because just based on your philosophy and where you think and how you think already, you're pretty aware. So, but that is, you know, most people, if Michelle would walk down the room, people would not have any clue what she was wearing. So you guys are like above average. So, all right. Great. So permaculture is a design method. So it's based on observation of nature, seeing what's going on in nature, and it's a design method. So we're using it to create something. So who thinks of design? Is that what comes to people's mind usually when you first think about design? So you're designing and creating like buildings, environments, homes, landscapes. So it's like you need to have all this technical background and understanding in order to come up with a highly detailed plan. Some people may have thought of graphic design. So, you know, it's kind of a similar thing. You still need a knowledge base and skill set in order to do that, or computer design. Those are probably our common design concepts that we have in our society now. So in order to be a permaculture designer, who thinks you could be a permaculture designer if this is how you're thinking? So this is what generally think it's hard to be a permaculture designer? Yeah. So we are all already creating lots and lots of systems in our lives, which I know the humanist focus is pretty well set up on as far as focusing on the social systems in our society. I know that's a big focus for this group. We create everything in our lives. Everything that you do in your life is a design. So how you wake up in the morning, what you do when you wake up, if you vote, our financial system, we've created, that's a human created system. So, does anybody run a business? Are there any business owners in here? Do you start a business without a business plan? So that's a design. So you're designing your business. If you're going to incorporate healthy living into your life, so you design that, how you're going to design your landscape. Family dinner time. You have to design that into your life. If you're going to sit down with your family and have a family meal, you have to plan for that. So anything you have to plan for, you are designing and creating. Adherence. You guys are already based on ethics. So does anybody in here care for people? Raise your hands. Let me see. Does anybody care about people? Yes. Does anybody care about the planet? Yes. And does anybody care about equality? Sharing, providing for future generations, making sure everybody is taken care of. So guess what? You're all already permaculturists. So you're designing and you have the ethics base. So anybody can do this. Everybody is a permaculturist if you raise your awareness and think and base your decisions, just like Jack was saying at the beginning, it's like how you live your life. It's like you're choosing and deciding what you are going to be. So you guys are already decided you're going to be permaculturists. All right. So we use the design to create sustainable systems. That's David Holmgren up there in the corner. So he's the other co-founder. And what David did, after he got done studying, David was a student of Bill Lawson's. And so when he got done studying with Bill directly, he went off and continued to evolve the concept of permaculture. And he broke it down really easily. So it became a much more understandable process when you're doing these things. Do you need the mouse? Okay. So he came up with a set of principles. So these are ways of applying these ethics when you're creating a system, your daily living, or whatever. And if you want to come to our other class that we're doing, what is our
June 20th.
June 20th. Intro to Permaculture. We will get into more depth into how you apply these and what these do. So yeah, David just made it much more approachable and easier because Bill Lawson's textbook that he wrote is like this thick and it's very difficult to read. It's excellent reading, but it's a textbook. So David brought it to the people. So sustainable systems. So these are all our systems in our lives and our communities that we need to create and that we have created as human beings. Some of them we've created well, some of them not so well. So our food systems, so I think most people in the room are pretty well aware of the critical situation our food systems are in and how the drought, our water situation in California is really going to be impacting us here. Oil prices affect us here. A couple of years ago, I don't know if anybody was shopping when we had that really, really cold snap. Went into Trader Joe's and the shelves were empty because the trucks couldn't get through because it was too cold. It was freezing the diesel fuel. So we're really, really not food secure. Unless you're growing your own food, you're really, really not food secure. And preserving it and having a stock of food to last you for a while. Our waste systems, our landfills are overflowing. We have so much waste in our system. We have so much pollution. But that's just because of the way we've designed the systems. It doesn't mean it has to be that way. It just means we need to get the political will together in order to make the changes. You know, our medical system, you know, how we, you know, big pharma, is anybody familiar with big pharma? It's like, you can take all these pills with the side effects of stroke, death, you know, but you can't drink raw milk, you know, so it's those types of things. So those are all the systems that we look at for our communities when we are creating these systems. Okay, so it's creating sustainable systems for our daily living, so our lifestyles. So here in suburbia, if we're going to apply this concept to a suburban environment, our biggest thing that can reduce our impact on our planet is to insulate and air seal your house. You know, it's like, it's so unglamorous, it's so unexciting. You're not going to have a big party and show your neighbors, look at my insulation. Although, I do know people who do that. But, you know, it's like, it's not a glamorous thing. So it's like, yes, I have known people who have shown solar systems. So you know, people on the solar tour. You know, you can get a little excitement over showing off your solar system, but insulate and air seal your homes. That's probably one of the biggest things you can do because buildings are our biggest greenhouse gas creators. So just do it. You know, it's like people aren't going to do it unless they're uncomfortable generally, but it's probably the biggest thing you can do to make the biggest difference.
More than cars? Buildings?
It's more than cars. Yes. So, which is the next slide. So, our cars are our next biggest impact. So, stop driving your car, your gasoline car. Michelle just got a Leaf, so we usually try to take that when we're not farming and building food for us and need to haul stuff. But, you know, walk to work, bike to work, take the train, take public transportation, all these things, those are significant impacts that we can make. Lifestyle. You know, the third biggest impact that we have in suburbia is shopping. It's our consumption, which is one of the biggest philosophies and foundational concepts in permaculture, is to stop being a consumer and start becoming a producer. So permaculture is about creating regenerative systems. So we are creating systems that are actually producing and creating yields, not creating pollution or waste. And anytime you shop or buy something, that is a huge, huge impact. So the less you shop, the better off you'll be, the better off our planet will be. So learning how to preserve and store food, that's a huge thing. Grow, store, and preserve food, that's hugely important. Learning how to take care of yourself. A lot of it is preventive health. You know, it's nice that at least they're talking about it now, that preventive health is as important as, you know, taking care of the problem. You need to learn how to take care of yourself. So that's like a foundational skill. Stay healthy. Stop shopping, you know, and reduce your waste. So reduce the waste in your household. The more you can reduce your waste, start recycling more. You know, it's like reduce your recycling even. Find more reuse, repurpose. You know, composting is huge. That makes a big difference. Actually, I don't know, Michelle, have you heard Naperville is starting to compost?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So if you live in Naperville, the new waste hauler, they're going to compost, so you can compost. If you're not going to do it at home. I recommend you do it at home because that's a valuable resource you should really be using instead of sending it away to the trash, but it's at least an option now. And our land. Here in the suburbs, there are over 30 million acres of lawn. That's the size of Ohio. That's a lot of grass. And what do we do to grass? What do we have to do for grass? You have to mow it. You have to mow it. If you live in the suburbs, you have to use chemicals on it. So, if you want to be a nice suburbanite neighbor, some of us choose not to be.
I'm a suburbanite neighbor, and I don't have one.
So, and here in the suburbs, we have so much space. We have so much lawn and so much viable land that we can be making productive. That's what we want to do, is we want to make it productive. Stop being a consumer, start being a producer. One way to do that is to build your soil. So does anybody here rake your leaves in the fall? So send them to the curb? Don't do that. Rake them back into your gardens underneath your trees. That's food for your trees, that's food for your soil. Your land needs those leaves. So when you go to the store and buy your NPK fertilizer or, put fertilizer on your lawn, your leaves are your pee, right? Yes, the leaves are your pee that you need. So don't rake it away. Mulch them, leave them in your grass. It'll feed your lawn. That is your natural fertilizer. So build your soil. If you have a lot of worms, that's a good thing. They are soil builders. And then if you have healthy soil, you can grow a lot of food. So this is Michelle's yard right here. This was our first forest garden inspiration. It's a lot bigger now. So yeah, this tree is just gigantic now. So what do we have in your front yard? We have
In that little section, because now the other side's done too. In that section, there's a redbud tree, a peach tree with an apricot apple to it, a four-pear tree, and a bean cherry tree. Then we have 3 gooseberries, 3 jossberry bushes, 3 raspberry shrubs, 12 asparagus plants, 3 rhubarb plants, 3 baptisias, 4 lead plants,
calendula.
your address?
calendula, strawberries,
It's
yarrow,
1360 West Jefferson,
Yes.
right here in Naperville.
thyme, there's lots
Yes.
of onions.
And that's in a 14 by 25 foot area. So most people in the suburbs, if you own a home, you have this strip along one side of your driveway. So this is just one tiny spot in our yard this was our first spot. So it doesn't take a lot to get started doing this.
You say the dogs are not good, but they must take some carbon dioxide, right?
Absolutely, huge. The more,
Do lawns take carbon on that?
oh, do they? They do.
Maybe not as much as trees.
Exactly. So what's going to take more carbon dioxide out? That or grass? So it's put plants in, real good sized plants. All right, so water. Our homes, stormwater runoff is a huge issue here in the suburbs. Stormwater management, it's a gigantic issue. So the less water you have running off of your property that you can keep on your property, the better. It reduces so much pollution, and it's a resource that, again, is currently being treated as a waste product. And water is like our most valuable resource. So we really need to be harvesting it as many ways as we possibly can. So that's a rain garden up there. A couple of rain harvesting techniques. That's a rain tote. It holds 275 gallons because if you hook up a rain barrel, it fills up like a split. So it really doesn't hold that much water. Gray water systems. Get on the boat. We've got to start talking to our legislators to make them legal, make them easier to do. Because again, all that is just the wastewater treatment plant here in Naperville consumes the most energy of anything in the city. So, the amount of water, resources that it takes to process water is insane, and it's just being flushed away. So, anybody can do it. So, that's a woman, was she in your PDC or something?
No.
Okay, so anyways, anybody can do it. You can learn how to do these techniques with permaculture. It's not difficult. Put a pond in.
I didn't catch the name of the collector that's under the rain barrel.
It's an IBC tote. So you can go on Craigslist and get them. They're like $75. So they're probably around the same cost of, if you buy a pretty rain barrel, but it's much more functional, but it does take some more expertise to hook it up to. But it's not difficult. We can teach you how to do that. So Yeah, it's just more bang for your buck.
Look at the space,
Yes,
4 foot by 4 foot.
yeah, it's 4x4, it's a 4x4 area. So I know people that have done it, they put them in their basements so that, you know, they've got the water in their house to use, you know, flush their toilets, whether, not legally, of course, but, you know, it's like, it can be done. So we need to, especially here in Illinois, we get so much rain, we have a beautiful amount of rainfall. So we could be doing a lot more with our rain than letting it just erode soil and run down to the Gulf of Mexico.
That was a long vote.
This is it's a rain harvesting system, so you hook up to your gutters and it'll store water. So this system in particular, this is a cistern that's underground that's built there. So obviously
It's called brain exchange. So what that is store anywhere between 500 to 25,000 gallons of water. That is connected to a pump, so you can use that for any irrigation needs. You connect it to a hose.
it's a beautiful thing.
But the best systems are the ones that are passive. You know,
Yes.
we design swale and pond systems that are all passive, requiring no energy whatsoever.
Right.
Just works through nature and gravity.
Low maintenance, no work. As permaculturists, that's one of our prime directives. Design the work out of the system. So it's like, it takes us a while to set these projects up. So you are putting quite a bit of heavy labor into the beginning of the project. But once it's established, the idea is that it's, you know, pretty self-maintaining. So like for a food forest, as we create these projects, as we go to, imagine going to the forest reserve. You know, it's like instead of just going through and walking on your path, you know, or biking through really fast and just, you know, there's no encouragement to interact with nature, you know, you're disconnected again. Imagine being able to go through and harvest, you know, pawpaws, persimmons, berries, you know, other kinds, tons of different kinds of fruits, nuts, hazelnuts. It's an interactive space that's providing a yield for us as human beings.
Very sharp, really great to walk on, hold up, nice clean walls, just there, and that should be, is it easy to put that to some water gardens or?
The rainwater?
No, the shower.
Shower, that's a gray water system and they're not legal.
Why is it illegal to use it?
Yeah.
Correct.
Why?
Because
That's a great question. Because we have not, as humans, we have not designed an efficient system for using our resources. Because, you know, that financial system has gotten its fingers into the whole decision-making process. So
It
those are,
actually is in the works. I mean, it's been in the works for over a year now of them changing some policy.
Yeah.
it's,
It's in process.
but it's policy, so it's, you gotta stay involved and write your legislators. So this is the suburban standard, right? All this open lawn, manicured lawn with a little bit of greenery around the edges, maybe. So this is the old standard. We want to get rid of that. And we want to create a new land aesthetic that's valued as, this is what people want, you know? We want the stately, interactive gardens, not the resource polluting lawns. So you can see as a kid, and this is the story that, okay, my neighbor behind me, she has a garden, you know, straight out of Better Homes and Gardens. You know, it's beautiful, you know, she's got the lawn space in the middle, and it's, you know, all surrounded by gardens and plants and, you know, nice trees and, you know, artwork. And I was talking to her one day over the fence, she's like, I can't keep my grandkids out of my garden. And I'm like, well, yeah, Sue, like, what are they supposed to do in the lawn? You know, kids don't want to be on the grass. I mean, it's okay if you're playing a ball game, you know, if you've got a, you know, structured activity that you're doing, but what reason is there to be on a lawn? Actually, if you look closely at this picture here, you can see that swing set in the corner over there. How many swing sets do we see in suburbia everywhere? I've got one in my yard. Okay, if you look closely, you can see there's grass underneath that swing set. That's nice grass underneath that swing set. Do you think that swing set is used? No, they have to mow the grass underneath the swing set. There is no footpath or anything underneath that swing set. if I were a kid, where would I want to be? Would I want to be in that yard over there? Or would I want to be here in this yard playing with the chickens and looking for frogs and bugs and hiding spots and little cozy spots to make stew from different plants? I don't know, did anybody do that as a kid? So it's like you just go around the yard and pick all these plants and put them in a pot and make stew. Maybe I'm just the only weird one, but you know, it's like this is an interactive space. These are interactive spaces. They draw you to nature. They connect you with nature. You know, how many people here work in an office? Who here goes to an office? Okay. You are so nature deprived, and then it's so hard for you to come home and spend your time. You know, it's labor generally. It's like if you're out in your yard, okay, I've got to mow the grass, or you know, I've got to weed. There's not a lot of enjoyable activities for you to go out and into your yard. Maybe you have a patio, you like to come home and sit and have a drink on your patio, but you're not outside interacting with nature, as if you would in one of these spaces. You know, if you just kind of go out and harvest, yeah, I'm going to go out and have a little snack. You know, it's just, there's no interaction. So we're still continuing the disconnection from nature. So we don't have that basis to observe things and see how nature is functioning and make those connections. Let's see. Sustainable systems for our communities. So we've already touched upon those. You know, vote. You know, it's like voting is huge. Addressing those policy issues, that's a huge community factor. But we need positive places for our community to interact. It's going to provide us sustainability. Has anybody heard of the plant in Chicago? Okay, this building is amazing. Every town and city should have one of these buildings. So it is set up. The main building, it's based on aquaponics. So it's producing food, but then they've got businesses that are providing the resources for the system to provide the energy for the building. So it doesn't require external energy for the system. It's got the resources coming in. I can't even remember all the different things that are in now. I know it has the brewery.
A brewery, the aquaponics, a hydroponics system, I believe is kitchen space.
Oh yeah, that's a kombucha place.
A kombucha place.
But all these systems and all these businesses work together, and it makes a closed loop system. So each one is supporting the other one.
Meaning
It's
waste
all-
from one is food for another, right? So it's waste is food, is waste is food, waste is food.
It's closed. There's no pollution. You know, it's like we don't have to ship anything away, try and find a place to hide it, or do something with. It's a beautiful thing. We need farmers markets. We need more local farmers that can provide food locally for people in our communities. So does anybody here shop at the Naperville Farmers Market? Or most of those farmers are not local, so they come from pretty far away, and the food that they sell there a lot, they aren't growing, so they're distributors. We need more local food production in our systems. Libraries, lending co-ops, tool co-ops, you know, book shares, I love it. I've been seeing these little libraries popping up around. Does anybody know where those are, what organization is doing those? I just love it. They're like book swaps. So you have this, it's like a mailbox in your yard.
There was actually a lawsuit in one community, somebody wanted it taken out.
Well, but that's okay. I'm still going to get one because I just love it. So I'm going to have my thing there with a little bench underneath a fruit tree so people can sit there and have a snack and read a book or pick out their book, have a snack while they're picking out their book they wanted to swap with. You know, the bike exchanges are popular now. Just having more opportunities for people to come together and work together on these things.
We provide those opportunities, so.
Yes, we do. Okay. So, let's see. What I want to try and do is get a volunteer to, let's just talk about our sustainable living for daily systems for a minute. All right. So who wants to be volunteer and offer up some things that you have to do every day? What's your daily routine? What are all the things we have to cram into through the whole 24 hours that we have today?
Make coffee.
Shower, eat, okay. Shower.
Take care of your pets.
Yep.
Breakfast.
Just breakfast?
Just breakfast?
Meals?
Eat. We have to eat. Okay, and we should be exercising.
That's what you have to go to work, that's work.
Work. Yeah, that's a big one, isn't it?
Mike said sleep.
Play.
Sleep.
Drink.
Play.
Drink water.
Drink.
Eliminating.
Think.
Listen to that. Drive. You love to drive.
Yes.
Or transportation.
Commute. We have to shower. We have to eat. We have to work. Oh.
There's no kids in here. That's hard work.
Why should you eat?
So, relax. Absolutely.
Well, I don't know. I went to college and need to relax.
Well. We'll get to that. Yeah, relaxing is huge. Because that's what it's all about, right?
Clean house.
We have to clean.
Read.
Buy the food.
Shop. Although after chat, you all are going to be doing less of that, right? Okay. We have to cook. See, that's why our buildings make the highest impact on our greenhouse gas emissions and transportation and our shopping. But you know what? This factor right here consumes a significant amount of our time besides work. So when you're working and eating, these are what are consumer time, because what goes into eating? The food system that we have to go through every day, that's a huge system that affects a gigantic part of our day that nobody puts any thought into. Which is one reason why we get into the habits that we do of going to fast food places. You know, buying the prepared foods. Oh, I don't have time to cook. I don't want to cook. You know, I don't like to cook. Because we are not taking time to set up the system to support that process so it works efficiently for us and doesn't make us feel that way. In fact, we're going to be offering a class on that probably in 2017. So, so yeah, you've got to cook the food. You have to plan for the food. You have to plan it. You have to shop for it. You have to clean it up. All right, who here has kids right now? Nobody? Okay. Who here did have kids at home? They're gone. Aren't you happy? That is one thing that's significantly missing in many of our systems right now, because we've allowed our kids to get out of being involved in this whole process, because we're busy getting them to their activities. So I mean, commuting and transporting, you know, it's like the kids take up. If you have kids in suburbia, they take up a lot of time. So, which is not necessarily a bad thing if you design it to be enjoyable for more than just that child. So, and get the system in place so that it's not affecting you know, this process here, you know, and this process here, you know, and time for yourself. So this part for you, because I like to use the airplane and the air mask scenario. So if you need to put your own air mask on first before you can help anybody else or save anybody else. So, if, you know, this, I guess it's kind of saying if mom ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. So, but you know, it's like it doesn't matter if you're, you know, just a couple living at home. If you're living with other people, you need to put all these things into consideration. So what we do is, when we're creating a permaculture system, we would sit down and work out how each of these things, how much time it takes, and how to do it efficiently so it's not creating waste, and you're actually creating a yield from it. So you are actually deriving benefits from it that you're hoping to get. Because a lot of times, the way our systems are working now in our homes is we spend so much time and energy just getting and doing these things that we think we should be doing, that we're dedicated our time to, that we don't have the time to do the things that really make us happy or enjoy life, or, you know, so you can relax and, you know, spend time with what's the number one thing people want to do when you ask people if you had no responsibilities whatsoever. What's the one thing you want to do? Anybody? Yes, now you want a nap because you don't have the energy because you haven't set up your systems so that you're creating that energy. So you are energy depleted because something is not quite right in that system. So what else do you want to do?
People they enjoy these.
Exactly. That's what everybody says. I want to be with my family and my friends. I want to spend more time with family and friends. You know, whether it's sitting on my deck or, you know, having a party or whatever. That's what people want to do. They want to spend more time as a community. That's what we do. That's the whole purpose of permaculture, is to create energizing, happy communities. So it works for your daily permaculture. Really, really, for daily living, that's really square one here in the suburbs. That's really where we need to be examining our sustainability efforts, is our own personal daily living. Because that's where it's going to have the biggest impact. So here's my sales pitch. So take a PDC. I don't know how many times I hear people, like I said, you know, Michelle went through a similar process, and our students who came through last year, they're all like, oh yeah, you know, it's like I've been studying this stuff and learning about this stuff. It's like, but once you go through the process of taking a PDC, it really puts it all together.
What is a PDC?
A PDC is a permaculture design certification class. So it's the actual class. It's a 72-hour class. We structure ours on the weekends, so it's 4 long weekends, 3 long weekends, sorry. And it's 72 hours. It's really intense. You know, it's exhausting. I'm not going to tell you it's not. It's exhausting. But it's so enlightening. People come away with such a level of awareness and understanding. And it's really an aha moment. And I don't know anybody who's gone through a class who hasn't come away with that experience.
If I can add, it's like a reboot.
Yes.
Kind of like you reboot your computer, you know?
Yes.
And which is why it is exhausting, right? Because you're basically changing your system, your hardware, your software, you're changing your software. Yeah, it's
An upgrade. It'll lead you to an upgrade in hardware. So we offer it. There's a lot of people who offer it. You can take it in a lot of different formats and a lot of different places. If you're interested, talk to us. We can help you figure out an instructor. That the way permaculture classes are taught, it really varies upon the instructor that's teaching it. So we can help you figure out a good instructor that would work with you. Because the whole point is to create abundance. Permaculture is about creating and yield abundance, and that primarily focuses on happiness.
And my front yard looked like that sort of picture. I think my neighbours would probably complain. I like it, but it's not conforming with everybody else's subdivision.
It's because they don't know any different.
Right.
Because that's what,
And
that's
then
what
we're on the
on.
black of the lawn, and you're the one, but I'm the one who stands out in my yard, and guess what? Everyone loves it,
I stand out in my neighborhood,
and no one
and
loves it.
my main neighbor doesn't love it yet, but I'm going to be making peach pie, peach cobbler, like I know my neighbor loves peaches, so guess what they're getting this year? So, it's an education, it's like they weren't too sure about the beehives. Well, guess who's getting honey this year, it's like, and it's those small things that create that level of awareness. It's like you have to make people are not aware of anything. They're not observant, they're not aware, they're not connected. They just go through the motion of, this is what we do, this is what we do, this is what we do, this is what we do.
Well,
They don't know any different. So it's like you go through, you start learning about permaculture and you realize, oh, this feels much better. So it's learning to think outside the box. Okay.
It's all about quality of life.
Exactly. It's creating a new quality of life.
But in that, what you mentioned too about the neighbors, that's all about community too. So if you don't know your neighbors, then it's very easy for them to complain about what you're doing on your property, because you don't have a human connection with them. But if you had a human connection with all your neighbors where they cared about you, and they cared about your family, then it would be a different relationship, right? There wouldn't be that animosity about what you're doing in your yard. There'd be more curiosity instead of animosity. So it's how are you structuring your community, and that's part of permaculture. Of course, my neighbors are all happy because I make sure all my neighbors are happy, and that they like me, and that we do things together and we support each other. And then I plant stuff in my yard that their kids like to eat, so the kids come over and eat from my yard. So you know what I mean? It's all of that. It's again creating those community systems as well as the food systems, and all of it together.
Do we have any questions? It's a lot of information. It's permaculture. It's not an easy thing. That's why it hasn't taken off. That's why it's been around for almost 15 years, and maybe people still don't know about it. And it's not taking off because it's complex. It's not easy, and I think you all understand that. Just living an ethical life. So.
Yeah, I would say that we probably, all of us do at least one thing that would be considered a part of permaculture, like some of us have vegetable gardens. My son works and volunteers for the rebuilding exchange in the city, which
I love that.
yeah. Let's see, gardening, I'm constantly composting, and now my mother's starting to, we've got a rain barrel, and now my 76-year-old mother has bought a rain barrel.
Nice.
Wow!
It's just, you gotta start taking the steps, and
Right,
it's like, you just continue. It's not a destination. Our society the way we are right now, nobody's gonna get there. It's just not possible in our system the way we live, the way things are. But it's a journey, and so it's like you just learn how to incorporate more things, you do some things, and you incorporate something new. It's like, okay, well this year I'm gonna grow potatoes. I'm gonna learn how to grow potatoes, or I'm gonna learn how to, compost. On that gray water system. It's a journey.
Has anyone here done anything that might be considered sustainable?
Is converting your gardens to perennials considered part of this permaculture? Because I don't buy annuals anymore. I have all perennials now. A couple of mini baskets of annuals, but
Absolutely, that's a good thing to be doing because perennials are more sustainable than annuals, especially the annuals that we have available to us and the way they're grown and all that whole annuals process, unless you're growing your own from seed. Yes, perennials are much more sustainable. It's better for the soil. The less you adjust and dig and move your soil, the better your land is going to be. So if you're using native perennials, that's even better. And if you're using native perennials that produce food for you, as well as the birds and the bees, then it's a double win.
These birds, but not me.
Yeah, exactly. So, and you know, you hear a lot about native.
And add some that feed you.
Exactly. You know, it's like they've got lovely, spectacular native plantings out here. I haven't seen everything that's out there. But yeah, it's like, you know, the church wants to do the right thing and plant the native plants, you know, take care of our native species, our native flora and fauna. Well, guess what? We're part of the system too, as human beings. And it's much more sustainable for us, you know, it's much more environmentally friendly to be growing as much and providing as much of our own needs as close to us as we possibly can. So if you can throw some lankiers in there, some honeyberries, some currants, some gooseberries, asparagus, the more food you can throw in there to provide for us too, because guess what? All those things will also benefit the birds and the bees.
Well, you know, the question is, why when people think about gardening, do they think about pretty flowers and the birds and the bees, wildlife?
If you're lucky, you're advanced. If you're thinking about native plants and benefiting the birds and the bees, you're advanced.
It's like nobody would really, when you first talk about gardening, people do not think about us and that we need to eat. Honestly, everybody's yard should be filled with food because think of how often we eat. Why are we going to a grocery store when we have food producing systems available to us right there with the opportunities right there? So it just fascinates me, the thinking. Like,
Because we've got so disconnected in our society, you know, so we've got trainers, systems been set up to go to the grocery store.
It's like, why do people care so much about the bees surviving if they don't care about humans surviving?
Exactly.
Well, because
I can say-
we never pollinate our food supply, whether it's in our backyard.
We don't need
or-
honeybees. We can live without honeybees. We're beekeepers. Jody and I are both beekeepers. We can live without honeybees.
So there's.
Only if you do permaculture.
Oh, okay.
Only if you do permaculture. Because our monoculture food systems require pollination of the honeybee because they're transportable.
Oh, that's it.
If we switch to permaculture for our food supply, native pollinators could do everything.
If we don't kill them with herbicides or pesticides.
Yeah, we're killing them all. But you get the point. Honeybees are only necessary to sustain our monoculture food supply.
Our commercial scale food system, that's what they're required for. So, because, you know, you've got thousands of acres of almonds or whatever, you know, it's a monoculture,
Yeah.
whatever you're doing on that land, so.
Are there other, perennial vegetables other than asparagus that you can plant? I'm thinking, trying to think of some others, but I can't think of any, because you talk about planting potatoes, but those don't come on as good as
No, they,
and tomatoes don't, and,
no, yes, there's a lot of greens are perennial, you can get a lot of perennial greens. Mushrooms, or,
Sorrel, dandelions, chickweed, you can have kale reseed, you can have lettuces reseed. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the greens are all perennial, you always just make sure things go to seed too. I have broccoli that comes back every year. And it's also changing, our wild edibles council will help you do that. Changing how you think about food. So when you go to a perennial system, you eat different things.
we have a very limited diet, so there are very few vegetables and plants that we, as in our society currently eat, you know, only like 23 vegetables that people generally eat, which is very microscopic compared to what's available and could potentially be out there you could be eating, so.
When you come to one of our potlucks, you will be blessed. violet leaves, violet flowers, lovage, rhubarb, stingy nettles,
Need to
some lemon balm, I mean, I can't think of all the things. But I just go and harvest my yard. Any,
So you eat the dead like greens, not the flowers, right?
everything,
You eat the flowers?
everything.
You cook them?
Not the stems. Yeah, I don't eat the stems, but
Yeah, no, they don't eat the stems, but
The
the
leaves and
flowers,
flowers.
the leaves, the roots.
Do you cook the dandelion greens or you eat them raw?
I do it differently, so oftentimes I will leave them raw, but I will put something warm on top of them. You know, so I cooked some potato today, a potato today, and so I chop that up and then I put that on top of the dandelion, so they just wilt a little bit. But the sorrel, like if you make peas and then you add some chopped up sorrel to that, that adds that lemony taste to it, and you do the greens as well, it's so delicious, and then you have chives. Oh my gosh, I've been eating chives like crazy, and perennial garlic, perennial onions, and oh my gosh, yes, I have perennial garlic, perennial onions, it's just amazing. I love eating.
you gotta go out and harvest the walking onions for the
Oh yeah?
gardens.
There was an article in Tribune today about rain-ups, that people are going out into the woods and they're like a type of onion,
Yes,
and they're pulling
It's
them
a
out,
wild leaf.
and there's a danger of them.
yes, they're over harvesting.
Yeah.
So because you're eating the entire plant, the root and all.
I've
So.
never eaten a rain-up, have you?
Oh yeah, they're really good, delicious. Yes,
Do you plant them in there?
they're oniony. So we just planted some out in the farm. So out in the farm, where we process it.
And I have to say that, technically, I remember making a comment once to someone or forester girl saying, oh, I'll just, grab a few berries or I'll just dig up something. They say, you can't do that. You can't do that.
You can, in the forest
You
reserve.
can't dig
Forest
stuff.
reserves, you can forage in the forest
You can
reserves.
forage, but you can't dig stuff up and
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
So you're saying you can pick onions or something?
No, not the berries in them up, like pick berries or things like that.
All right.
But what we don't teach is foraging, we teach you grow it in your own yard. I mean, yes, there's opportunities for you at least to go and maybe sample or something like that, but the idea is maybe you just sample and get familiar with the structure of the plant and if you like it or not. But then ideally, you're putting it into your own yard. And that's the shame of what's happening with this whole foraging thing is that people have become very greedy and have gone and are really
Making money off of it.
making a lot of money off of harvesting things that are growing and then destroying that whole ecosystem. So it's an unfortunate thing that's happening. But what's the resolution here? People going to those restaurants need to stop eating it.
So again, it comes down to awareness and education. People aren't aware, so. And keep raising that awareness. Did you have a question?
I did, advice for condo or apartment owners.
Yes.
Lots. Talk to your condo association. See if they'll let you put in fruit trees.
Well, or do
Do
something
you have
in
land?
your.
Is there land around the building?
I'm in condo too. Minute I step out the door, it's community farm, I can't do anything.
But there's community gardens that you could have a plat, plus
Yeah, but-
if you belong to any kind of, if you go to work, if
Who
you
works?
have some land,
I'm retired.
and then you can.
Good, so you got a lot of time to nag those people who are on the board to change that policy.
You know, like Jody, she has a pretty shady yard, so, she partners with her brother who grows a lot of her things for her. And
Yeah,
it's
so that community aspect, and developing that community aspect.
we wouldn't expect everybody to go out and transform their yard into an edible forest garden. That it's not possible. Some people have shade issues. Some people just can't do it. They don't have the physical capacity to do it. There's all these other limitations. The expectation is not that everybody in the community would transform their yards into an edible forest garden, but that we have a community system, which is why we go out into the community and build these community systems. We are building a 1/3 of an acre food forest. So you, in 3 years, will be able to go out there
You will have a resource to do that.
and harvest whatever you want. That's why it's there.
In comparison to the amount of energy you use to grab and harvest, is that equal to the amount of energy you get by buying something at the store?
I don't understand the question.
The amount of like fossil fuels or something that you would use?
Oh, well, I mean, ideally, these would be all over in every community. So ideally, you would have one, within a mile of your house. You would have a community food forest. And then you'd be able to walk or ride your bike and go and harvest. I mean, we're only a 2-year-old organization. And we already have 2.5 projects, in the ground. So, we're getting there. But it's for other people to continue on this journey, and we can't do them all. But to try to instigate a community food forest in your community that you, your neighbors, and friends
Where do you live?
will be able to take advantage of.
Where I live,
Yeah.
a mile west of Insula and Aurora Central. In the city of Aurora.
You're in Aurora?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so we've talked to people in Aurora about doing projects in Aurora, so.
Said, where I live is completely
Untouched.
untouchable. You're right.
There's not a park.
No property near me. The closest,
What is the closest park to you?
the closest place I can get growth of is off of about 2 miles away. But I can wait
What's
4 miles away, or Nelson Lake area, 6-7 miles away.
Well, no, there's no churches or schools or libraries.
That's what we're focusing on doing, is we're trying to get businesses, like all these businesses around here, like Dio and all these big corporations that have all this land, or these churches that have like lots of land around them. Schools, eventually, we're encouraging other people to do the schools.
Yeah.
We're teaching other people how to do the schools. But people who have these large land areas that is just grass right now that's not being utilized, and even park districts have a lot of land space that is not utilized. So it's just property that they just mow. They
You
just
guys
have to
must
mow.
love golf courses.
We actually, before we were even officially in
Yeah.
Oasis Street, right, we were approached by Elgin Community College because they are in possession of a golf course
That they want to
that
convert.
they want to convert to a food forest.
That is so cool.
But they need to get their stuff together. It's like, we don't solve all the problems, they need to come up with some funding and the people who are actually gonna implement it.
Yeah. The city of Aurora just sold it, part of the golf courses to some developer. You could build some condos in that area.
Like, that's what we need.
I look at the prairie land, there's a lot of land, and a lot of it is devoted to prairie restoration, because the prairie was once wiped out, so there's prairie restoration.
Yeah.
You can do a nature walks there and see the different plants and so on.
Which is beautiful, but you know what?
And herd bison too, we have. So,
Oh, yes.
and they're babies now, so you can go
Oh,
see
how
them.
fun.
Born this week, yeah. So.
This week. But I mean, the big thing about what Jody's been talking about in permaculture is, it's systems thinking. It's understanding how each thing connects to another thing, connects to another, connects to another, and understanding our place in that system. We are a part of nature. We are not separate from nature. We are a part of it. We are a part of a transportation system, a financial system, a health system, a food system, a waste system. We're part of all those systems. So it's understanding, how do we integrate all of this? How do we make all of these systems work in a way that cares for people, cares for the planet, and fair share? How do we change that, our lifestyles, so that all of the systems that we're a part of are connected and waste is a resource?
How do we make those ethical decisions? It's all about
It's
those ethics.
to change all that. I mean, I've been
It's
working on
hard.
this for
It's
7
not
years.
easy. We're not saying this is an easy thing to do,
And-
because our society and system is set up to completely not allow that to happen. So,
You're right. You talk about community by bicycle or walking, all that thing. Where I live, in order to do that, you got to cross major streets. It's not designed for.
that's how it's by my house too. Yeah, Yes, I know. Yeah. So it's all those things.
So you buy an electric car.
It requires,
That's what I did, because I had the same issue, so
you know, it requires you to be involved. It requires you to create these types of systems in your daily living so you have the energy to go out and participate in your community, you know, politically, socially, you know, and keep working. So, like I said, put that air mask on. You gotta take care of yourself first, and then we can start working together to take care of these other issues, because it's gonna be a lot of work. We haven't designed things very well yet, so there's a lot of,
Very much so.
and we all know that remodeling is much more work than building correct the first time, so.
And I think my biggest concern for humanity is the fact that, you know, we're kind of all, this is a derogatory unfortunately, but we're kind of all sheep on the corporation land, basically.
Sheep.
You know? Yeah. So the corporations are the herders and we're all the sheep. And we're just following along. And they have all the control. You're going to work to earn money to pay corporations to feed you, house you, and do everything else, right? So you keep working to make money to give to the corporations, so you can keep working to make money to give more to the corporations. So you realize that's the system that we're working in. And in order for you to, in my opinion, in order for you to attain happiness to what you truly want to do, is you have to break that. You have to get out of that. You have to stop thinking that you have to work, to shop, to buy, to live, to be happy. You know, you kind of have to break that system and sit down and really think, what do I want out of life? What does bring me happiness and joy? How do I get that? How much money do I really need? Or can I barter more things? Or can I rely more on friends and community and family? You know, like how can I change the systems at play here in order to do that? I have not been to a grocery store in a month, you know? Like, how do you do that, right? How do I have to go to the post office, to be honest, I haven't been there in like 2 weeks, because that would mean I have to go to this system. It's such a hard time. I removed myself so far from these systems that I have a hard time interacting with them now. I'm getting like a phobia, right? But anyway, you get what I'm saying is, I just really challenge everybody to kind of take a step back and understand your part in the system and start extracting yourself from the pieces you don't want to be a part of. Like you were talking about Monsanto. And so with Monsanto, think about all the places that Monsanto has insinuated itself, okay? They're not just about GMO corn and soybeans. They own so much other seed, you know what I mean? And all the other things that they're doing. So how is it that you are funding Monsanto? Do you eat at any fast food restaurant? Guess what? You're funding Monsanto. You know, a lot of processed food is funding Monsanto. You know, if you drink pot, you're funding Monsanto. So it's, think of all the places, if you don't want Monsanto to be having this control, then you have to stop funding them. And, right? Figure out that
You can find those ethics and say, okay, I'm not doing it. So, and it's not easy. It's not easy. So,
I think the trick is to do it a little bit at a time.
Yes.
Even if it's just say, I'll have water instead of pot today, or,
exactly.
or tea or whatever. Even if it's one of my favorite sayings is, don't do nothing because you can only do a little.
Right.
So, if you can...
take a step, just do it. That's the email I put out today. Just do
Pick
it, take a step.
Pick a few raspberries
something.
from the berry path and put that in your salad, then you know.
Exactly.
Yeah, I have a book at home that I haven't read, but I was inspired to pull it off the shelf.
Oh, read it.
Gaia's Garden, a guide
Gaia's
to
Garden.
scale permaculture,
Toby Hemingway.
Hemingway. But I thought it fit with the topic tonight.
Yes, that's the
one of the best.
foundational textbook that they use for the permaculture design classes a lot of times. Yeah.
It was on sale at Borders.
Oh,